and welcome to Moms on Mics. I'm Joanne.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Sophia.
This week, we continue our coverage of the West Memphis Three case with the only one of the three that actually testified in trial, which is Damien Echols and his testimony. The Damien Echols and Jason Baldwin trial, February 28th to March 18th, 1994. Damien Echols, witness for the defense. Price, Damien's defense attorney, starts off by asking Damien to tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury a little bit about what type of things he enjoyed doing as far as like his interests and hobbies and things of that nature. Damien says, for a few years, I really enjoyed skateboarding. It was all I lived for a while. I like movies about any types of books, talking on the phone, watching TV. I will read about anything. My favorites were Stephen King and Dean Koontz and Anne Rice. This was a smart move trying to humanize him, as so far the prosecution, not without help from Damien himself, obviously, had turned him into some kind of demonic sideshow. Price then asked, during the time period in your latter teenage years, did you develop an interest in different types of religions? Or what beliefs were you studying at this time period? Damien replies, I've read about all different types of religions because I've always wondered, like, how do we know we've got the right one? How do we know we're not messing up? Damien went on to say that he was really interested in the Catholic religion and studying that. Wicca, also, it acknowledges a goddess in a higher regard as a god, because people have always said we're all God's children and men cannot have children. It's basically a close involvement with nature. That's a good point, actually, like about being all God's children. Men can't have kids. So wouldn't God more likely be a woman then? I mean, obviously you need a dad as well to have the kids, but who's God's wife or like baby mama, you know? Maybe I need to read the Bible.
I mean, I think it's the Virgin Mary, isn't it? Isn't that baby mama?
I thought that. Oh, yeah, because of Mary and
Mary?
Joseph, right?
I don't know.
Clearly.
Yeah, clearly
We do
I'm
not.
not very religious.
Right?
Price asked Damien about several things that have been introduced as exhibits, starting with exhibit number 123, which was a notebook. He asked, when was it that you wrote some of the things that are in here? Was there a particular reason why you kept writing in a book such as that? Damien answers, probably from early 1991 to early 1992. I wrote a lot before and just never saved it. And people started telling me that it was good, so I should keep it. So I just started keeping it. Price then asked Damien to read the quotes on the inside of the front cover and where they came from. Damien reads, quote, life is but a walking shadow. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and furry, signifying nothing, end quote. And that was from A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. Quote, pure black looking clear, my work is soon done here. Try getting back from me that which used to be. End quote. That is off a Metallica tape called And Justice for All. He then goes on to talk about how warped the court systems are, stuff like that. The other one is from The Twilight Zone. Quote, I've kicked open a lot of doors in my time, and I am willing to wait for this one to open, and when it does, I'll be waiting. End quote. He then explains that the writing on the back are lyrics to a tape. Me and Jason, every time one of us would get a tape that the other one didn't have, we would make copies of it for each other and copy the lyrics down to that particular set of lyrics, being that song Fade to Black by Metallica. Price mentioned that earlier there was a poem that Mr. Fogelman read to the jury. Do you remember when it was you wrote that in particular, or particularly why it was you wrote that? Damien explained that most of them he wrote around the same time period, and they were from when he was going through one of my manic depressive phases. Price then asked, now each of the things that were in there are poems. You've written every one of those? Now, did the writing of the poems have anything to do whatsoever with the murders that took place on May the 5th, 1993? Damien says no. These were wrote a year or two before any of that happened.
My God, could you imagine?
What kind of question is that?
Right?
Like, what?
Like, if anyone was to read any of my
Oh my
writings from
God.
high school, even from like now, like the stuff that I've written in the last few years, they'd be like, oh my God, she's psychotic. It's just a writing thing. It's nothing to do with your real life. Like when you write stuff, especially like, so he's writing in a notebook. A, he's in high school. He probably had to. And B, it's called a journal, you fucking morons. Like, and
Right?
now people just journal. And whether you journal with actually like what you've done each day or whether you journal by poems or however you journal, it's just journaling.
Yeah.
And poems, they don't always mean anything. Like
No.
they sometimes they're just, and they're dark and twisty sometimes because that's how they come. Like this is fucking bullshit. This is so, as a writer myself, this is so fucking frustrating that they would take any of his writings and think them to mean anything more than just being writing.
Well, they're just lyrics to a song,
Right? But
aren't
even
they?
like,
Like,
yeah, some were lyrics to a song and then
yeah.
some were poems that he wrote.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's lyrics to a song, they have nothing to do with him. He just
No.
wrote them out. Who cares?
But they also grow. You grow from one grade to another, so you'll sound different every time.
Oh, exactly. And I'm sorry, but the only writing that's really worth reading, especially poetry, is dark and twisty. And that's just my opinion. I get people love poems. Huh, not me. That's just not my thing, but it's also not a lot of people say. Like, you know, like some people like that stuff and some people don't, and that's okay. And those that write the dark and twisty things might not have anything dark and twisty at all in them. That's they just
Yeah.
write it. Who cares?
Yeah. Price asked about State's Exhibit 114, which was a poster Damien described was from the tape cover of Metallica's Master of Puppets. And we used to make copies of them on copy machines and get them enlarged bigger and just have them for decorations in our rooms. He asked about State Exhibit 112, which was a picture of Baphomet, a goat-headed figure. Are you familiar with that particular picture? Damien explained it was a picture he had in his room a couple of years ago that was given to me by a girlfriend that I was very fond of the time. The only significance was that it was from her. The state had also introduced another photograph of a poster, 113. This was the cover to a bootleg Metallica tape that most people didn't even know existed called Garage Days Revisited. And this was from it. State's Exhibit 116 was a skull of some kind. It looked like an animal skull. Damien explained it was a skull he and his stepdad, Jack Echols, had found, and I just thought it was kind of cool. And before he gave it to me, he bleached it out and everything to make sure there wasn't any germs or anything on it. It was a decoration for my room. Price asked, did that skull have any type of satanic meaning, any type of cult meaning, any type of occult meaning? To which Damien said, no, and we did not kill this. It was like that when we found it. The state introduced State's Exhibit number 111, a photograph. Damien explains this was a picture by an artist called Pushhead. It's by the name he goes by, and this was published in Thrasher magazine. It's a skateboarding magazine that I used to buy all the time when I used to skateboard. Other than that being a picture, it had no type of religious significance or cult significance or anything of that nature. State's Exhibit 110, Damien explains, is a book, different parts from books that were published all in different books. And I took little parts from each one and copied them down into this one.
All very harmless,
Yeah.
right?
The typical teenage shit,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. It just infuriates me being judged on the art that he likes and stuff like Give me a break. Price asked, and I noticed that there appears to be several different, do some of them appear to be like spells of some kind or potions or something of that nature? Besides the writings of those things down in your booklet there, did you ever practice any of those spells? To which Damien says, not that I know of. Davidson then asks, did you ever use any of that material there to conjure up any evil or anything of that nature? Damien answers, no. Oh my God. Okay. Do you remember the movie The Craft?
Yeah.
Do you remember when that came out and like trying to do their spells and stuff?
No.
Oh,
But I love
okay. Well,
that
I
movie.
did. Right? I totally loved that movie. And I remember me and my friends trying to do like their spells. It's fucking nonsense, man. Like, we thought we were badass. Yeah. Like, ugh. The state has introduced a picture of that same book with some kind of pin. Damien explains it's a gold skull with wings. It was a Harley Davidson necklace that broke, so I just stuck it in the front of the book. It also had a pentagram pointing up. He also explains that the difference between a pentagram with the point up and the pentagram with the point down is the one that points up is from the Wicca religion and the one that points down is from Satanism. The one that points up symbolizes a man or a woman with arms and legs outstretched. Satanism pointing down would be a goat's head. State also introduced the book Never on a Broomstick. Are you familiar with that particular book, which Damien explains he got at the library in Crittenden County, Marion, when they had a book sale? There was a couple of pages in there, in particular, that had been underlined in red and referenced the devil. Damien explained that it was done when he got it. He said, I think it was because somebody had a report to do or something, because all during the book, there's like little notes, certain dates and stuff, like from the 1600s in the outside margin. He was asked about his tattoos. He has a circle with a stick man, which is an Egyptian anak. It was some kind of Egyptian tattoo on his chest. It symbolizes eternal life. He got it because I just thought it was cool at the time. He has another on his chest, which is a pentagram. Again, because he said, quote, I just thought it was cool, end quote. It's not a Satanism pentagram. It was pointing up. He said it's, quote, it's faded out now. I don't even have it anymore, end quote. There is a cross on the web part of his finger. He got that one because, quote, there was a lot of people at school who were getting them that year. So, end quote. He also had the word evil tattooed on his fingers. It had faded also. He said he got that one because, quote, I had this t-shirt. It had a hand holding a hammer. It was for the and Justice for All tape. And across the hand, some of the groups of Metallica, they have things like hate, fear, evil, things like that. That was on one of my shirts, and I just kind of thought it was cool. So I did that. I mean, are we really going to start questioning everybody and their tattoos? Right? I mean, so far, all mine have meaning to me now, but ask me in however many years, right? Like, I don't know. People get tattoos all the time that they don't necessarily have some deep meaning or
No.
mean what they actually say they are, right? They like them. So they get it. That's
Like
all.
my first tattoo was just out of spite.
What was it?
The tramp stamp.
Oh, that's right. What is it of though? Like,
A butterfly.
I mean, how many people got a butterfly on the tramp stamp, right? And could you imagine if you were on trial and they said, Cash, what is that meaning of that tattoo?
Mine was just because I want to piss my mother off.
Right?
Oh my God.
Like,
Don't get me wrong. I do like it. It's just the purpose behind it was to piss my mom off. The
yeah.
day I was sitting in that tattoo shop getting it done.
Oh my God. I think it's just funny, like to say for them to bring his tattoos in, and I get it. They were similar to the nonsense of the Satanism bullshit that they were trying, but they didn't mean that. Like, I don't know.
And do you know how many people have evil on their fingers?
Right?
It's common.
Yeah. So I have on my side, I have, this is not as badass as his, but I have, I solemnly swear I'm up to no good. It's a Harry Potter thing.
Oh.
But I also want, my plan is, but when I'm really old, I want to get tattooed the other part to that, which is mischief managed. Because my theory is I'll be old and I won't be able to be a pain in the ass anymore. So it like ends, it's basically it's this map. When you want to open the map, the Marauders map, you have to say, I solemnly swear I'm up to no good. The map opens. When you're done, you close it and say mischief managed. That's my thought behind it, which is not as badass as evil and a pentagram and stuff, but
Price then asked, back on June the 3rd, the date that you were arrested, and the police executed a search warrant and got the book Never on a Broomstick. Did you have other books at your house? Damien had explained that he did, and he said, I am not sure what they were. I remember different things like Stephen King books, Dean Koontz.
can we just say this guy asked, did you have other books at your house? No, I only had the one fucking book. Like, come on. Sorry.
He said he liked Stephen King books. He's my favorite author. I've read all of them. Price then asked, the items that I showed you a few moments ago, this book with the different spells in there, and the couple of pictures, and those items there, did the Crittenden County, the juvenile's office, take those items about a year before the murders took place? Damien then replies, yes, they did. He then asked, did any of these items, this book right here, any of these pictures, any of this material right here, have anything to do whatsoever with the murders that took place on May the 5th, 1993? Damien then replies, no, they do not. This part is frustrating because were the items taken during the search warrant, or were they already in police custody if the juvenile officer took them a year before the murders? Price asks another fact that's been brought up several times today, or I think the entire trial, has been that you like to wear black. Did you have a preference of what type of color clothing you like to wear? His answer was black. The next question was, and why was this? Damien goes on to reply, I was told that I look good in black, and I'm real self-conscious about the way I dress. If I'm not dressed the way I like, it will give me headaches because I worry about it all the time. And when I dressed in black, I didn't really have to worry about it because I look the same every day. And who doesn't wear black? I wear black.
Right? That answer just kind of shows how normal of a teenager he is, right? He's self-conscious, so he wears black because someone at some point had said he looks good in it. I mean, don't we all? If someone says that you look good in something, don't you tend to wear that more often, right? Like,
I wear black all the time. So all I wear is black.
you know, I used to, and ever since we started talking about how much black we have, I'm realizing I don't have as much as I used to. Not that my wardrobe is super colorful. I have black, blue, and gray. I'm like, I have way more gray and blue than I thought I did.
Price then asks, how did other people at school look at you because of the way you dressed in black all the time? Damien says they thought it was kind of weird at first, stayed away, but then after a while, a few of them started doing it too. So Damien explains that he wasn't very popular in school, saying, I've never had a lot of the same interests that other people have, like sports, things like that. I've never been into anything like that. That it helped him deal with other people, to have people kind of standoffish, saying, yeah, it was like a defense mechanism. It would make people think like, well, he's weird, I'm not going to go around him. So it kept people away. It's important to note that while the prosecution was trying to use the evidence of the pictures, books, posters, and black shirts to paint a picture of Damien, for the jury of this twisted, scary, Satan-worshipping murderer, none of the items presented were actually proof that Damien worshipped Satan or murdered anyone. What they did was demonstrate a stereotype that each member of the jury was prejudiced against also. Price asked Damien, as far as the date, May the 5th, 1993, do you recall exactly what happened on that day? Damien admitted that he didn't really remember. He knew some of the things he did, but I can't remember any of the times or anything. It's too long ago. He said that generally I would get up anywhere between 10 till 1, get dressed, sometimes go to Domini's, sometimes she would come over after school. I usually went over to Jason's house when he was there. He said that he and Jason Baldwin were best friends and they like to walk around a lot just with no place particular in mind, just start walking and walk all around all day. Price then said, focusing in now on May the 5th, do you recall the events that took place, say, in the morning on that day, that Wednesday? It takes a bit of questioning. Davidson does have to practically drag the answers out of Damien, and reading the transcripts, it's frustrating to see Damien not giving every bit of information he can to help himself. Eventually, he does explain that he remembers going up to the doctor's office because an ex-stepsister was there, Carol Ashmore. She's Jack Echols' daughter. He doesn't remember the exact time, but thinks it was late morning. He doesn't recall where he went after that, but he does remember being with Domini at the laundromat and being picked up by his mom at 4 to 4:30. He said at some point during the day, he and his mom were dropping off a prescription at the pharmacy. He also remembered going to the Sanders with his sister Michelle and his parents. He couldn't remember if they picked up the prescription on the way home or not, but other than that, they went home and talked on the phone all night with Holly George, Jennifer Bearden, Dominique Tier, and Heather Cleat.
Price then asks, and besides talking on the phone on May the 5th, do you remember leaving the house any more times that evening? Damien says, no, I did not. Okay, on May the 5th, did you kill Michael Moore? Damien says, no, I did not. Price asks, on May the 5th, did you kill Stevie Branch? Damien says, no, I did not. Price asks, on May the 5th, did you kill Christopher Byers? Damien says, no, I did not. Price asks, did you have anything to do with their deaths whatsoever? Damien says, I'd never even heard of them before till I saw it on the news. Price asks, did you have any knowledge of who may have killed them? Damien says, no, I do not. Price asks, had you ever been to the Robin Hood Woods area? Damien says, no, I have not. Price asks, when is the first time that you were aware about the missing boys being found? And Damien says, I think it was on the 6th, either the 6th or the 7th. The West Memphis Police Department talked to Damien about these murders a day or two after the murders. Officer Steve Jones and Officer Sudbury. Damien said they went to his trailer and they, quote, just asked me, did I know who did it? Why did I think they did it? Things like that. End quote. He said, quote, I remember Steve Jones asked me, why would they be in the water? I said, I don't know. I guess they tried to hide them or something. And he said, was it possible that they were pushed into the water to flush urine out of their system? Yeah, I guess. They asked me how. I thought, and I heard mutilated, but when I thought of mutilated, I thought it was like all chopped up or something. I figured there wouldn't be like a whole body or anything. There had been rumors started already about what had happened to the boys. Everybody was talking about it. The officers took Damien's picture that first day and again the second day when they returned to talk to him again. They asked him the set of 32 questions, once when they were at his house and the second time when they brought him in for questioning. Some of the questions in relation to how do you think the boys were killed? Who do you think might have done this? Where were you between 5 and 10 p.m. on May the 5th?
On May 10th, Damien was brought in for questioning. He was there for 8 hours. At this time, he denied having anything to do with the murders. Detective Ridge asked him about some Wiccan beliefs about the significance of water. They had a tape recorder but didn't turn it on. At the conclusion of the interviews, Damien was not shown their notes, and they didn't have him sign saying, "Yes, I agree. This is everything I said." When asked if he told Officer Rich that water was a demonic force, Damien has said, "Most of the questions he asked me were like yes or no questions. When I would say no, he would start, 'Do you suppose?' Something like that. Yeah, I guess so." Price asked, "Did he ask you a lot of leading questions?" Damien said, "He asked me, quote, 'Do you think one of the kids was hurt worse than the rest of them?' End quote." Damien replied, "Yeah, I guess." Damien testified that he didn't have any independent knowledge of any of the details of what happened to the boys, just what public knowledge on TV, and that this was the topic that everybody was talking about. After talking with Rich, Damien was then talking to Detective Durham. During the time, he again denied any involvement with the murders. Damien said that conversation was mostly, they were just variations of the 32 questions. They would just change a couple of words or something. When asked, "Do you recall Detective Rich testifying that you made some comment to him about, quote, 'I will tell you everything I know if you let me talk to my mother?'" Damien explained he said that because that's the only way he would let me talk to my mother. They kept asking me, saying, quote, "Even if you did not do it, we know that you know something about it." End quote. So I said, "I will tell you everything I know after you let me talk to my mom." Then after I talked to my mom, he said, quote, "All right, now tell us everything you know." End quote. I said, "I don't know nothing," and they got mad. Officer Durham did not let Damien look at any notes he was taking or write down his name and confirm, "Yes, this is what I told you on this date." Damien admitted going to the girls' softball game, but denied discussing the murders there. During the investigation, the police had taken blood samples twice. Hair samples, fingerprints 5 or 6 times. They took his boots and barefoot print impressions.
Of course he would say whatever he could to get to talk to his mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's fucking 18. And he honestly probably realized, like, wait a minute, I think they think I did something, right? Like, who do you want when you are in trouble when you're 18? Your mom,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, always. Price asked, as far as the ideas he was talking about, as far as the things he was testifying to about yesterday, what did you think about the way he was trying to explain that material? Damien replied, some of it was okay, but he didn't stop to differentiate between different groups. He just lumped them all together into one big group that he called cults. Price, in some of the things you have read, does water have some type of significance? Damien, I have never heard of it like a demonic force like Rich did. I heard about it as a giver of life because all things need water to survive. Nothing can live without water. Price then asks, as far as several things that Griffiths was talking about yesterday about Satanism beliefs, are there any of those things that he was talking about that are your personal beliefs? Damien stated, not really my personal beliefs. Some things I might have in common. Some Satanists may be arrogant, conceited, self-important. I might be that, but I'm not a Satanist. I don't believe in human sacrifices or anything like that. When asked if he had a knife collection, Damien said, I've been buying knives for a long time. I had one in Arkansas, but it wasn't anything important. 2 or 3 knives. And then when I went to Oregon, I started buying them a lot when I was working up there. They had this knife shop, and I used to go up there all the time. Then when I moved back to Arkansas, they were still there with my parents. I didn't bring them back with me. It's important to note that during this time period in the area, a lot of people had knives. This wasn't anything all that unusual. Many people had knives still for lots of different reasons, none of which have anything to do with harming anybody. When asked about States Exhibit 77, or 77, the Rambo-looking knife, also referred to as the lake knife, Damien said he hadn't seen that knife before the trial. He did say that he had one similar, but the handle on his wasn't black, it was camouflage, and it had the camouflage. So was the case. Oh, so they were both camouflaged. The blade on his had also been black, not silver. He also said that Jason Baldwin had one similar also, but it didn't have a jagged edge. It was straight. And in the middle of the handle, there was a little purple jewel of some kind.
Yes, so the knife and the case that the knife went in that Damien had were both camouflage.
We're both camouflaged.
Yeah. I mean, boys had knives, right?
Hey, if you go to Texas, everybody has guns.
Right?
So there's that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Okay, so cross-examination by Mr. Davis. Davis questions Damien about his girlfriend Dominique Tier, if he knew she is related to the Hollingsworth, who testified in court, and if he acknowledged that Narlene and Anthony are familiar with Dominique, and if he agreed that he himself had a very distinctive look about him. Damien agreed. Davis then asked, and you have heard her testify in this court under her oath that on the night she came off the service road, she flashed her bright lights, and there was you and Dominique Tier right there on the service road down from the blue beacon. Do you know any reason why she would make up that story? Damien simply replied, maybe she thought she did. Duh. Right. Davis then asked about the two little girls that said that they saw you at the softball park. He asked how many times he had been there, to which Damien said once. He then asked, were you there the next night? Damien replied, no, I was not. Davis then asked, so you're saying that they weren't honest about that? Damien says, yes, I am. Davis asks again, you're saying that those girls, the girl that testified that she saw you the next night too, was she not telling the truth about that? And Damien replies, no, she's not. Davis confirms that this other defendant, Jason Baldwin, was out there with you. When you were there, was there a group of people standing around? Damien says, yes, Jason was there and some people that I knew. When Davis pushes on, do you know why the Van Vickle girl would get up here and have any reason to fabricate a story under oath about you? Damien says, there have been Damien sightings since I can remember. People were calling the police department saying they saw me marching around through Marion carrying black candles while I was all the way on the other side of the country, which kind of pisses Davis off, and he says, we aren't talking about fake sightings. Like, he's telling you, look, people make shit up about me all the time. That's all he's saying, you know? And, oh my God, this guy pisses me off. Damien responds, it is the same principle. It was a fake sighting. Davis then says, you were there, right? Damien doesn't waver. He says, the second night, I was not. They go back and forth on this for a while, and Davis asking, you don't know why in the world she would get up here and under oath testify that you said those things? And Damien responded, little kids say that kind of stuff all the time to get attention. Which, yeah, this is a big case. This is a huge deal. The town has not seen excitement like this before, especially not in this little girl's lifetime. And she's probably getting tons of attention. Now, I'm not saying that she didn't think that she saw him there. And in all honesty, maybe he was there and he doesn't remember, whatever. But either way, if he's saying he's not there and she's saying, well, I saw him there, I know he was there, like maybe she's mistaken. It could be that simple.
Davies questions Damien about if he and his family sat around discussing his alibi of the specific of their testimony. Damien says, they never really discussed it with me. They just said, well, we know you were here, so we know they can't prove anything because we know you didn't do it. Davies, have you discussed it with Mr. Lax, the private investigator they hired? Has he provided you any details about what witnesses were saying? Damien replies, not really theirs, mostly mine. Davies, he came in to tell you about what you were going to say? Damien's answer was no. He was asking me what did I tell the police, what times, things like that. I can't remember now. That was a year ago. Davies, you are testifying under oath that Mr. Lax has not sat down and discussed with you testimonies of other witnesses. Damien, not what they were going to say, but like who was going to testify, things like that. Davies, you're saying that he has not gone over with you the details and facts of what witnesses were going to say. Damien, no, not what they were going to say. Davies, what about the attorneys? Have they sat down and discussed with you details and facts about what was going to be said? Damien, not of what nobody was going to say. Davies, so nobody prior to this trial has discussed with you the details of the facts that they expected to hear in testimony from other witnesses. Damien, just that they were going to get up and testify, not what they were going to say. Davies, so all they told you is Joe Blow is going to testify, but never discussed any of the details of his testimony. Damien, not really, just what they knew about that. Davies, and that statement is as true and correct as everything else you have testified to under oath here today? Damien, I have not lied about a single thing. Davies, is that statement that you just gave me, that you haven't discussed this, is that as true and correct as everything else you have testified to here today? Damien, yes it is. Davies asked, you said that you used to walk around West Memphis all the time. Did you and Jason walk around West Memphis? Damien said they did. That they mostly, where we walked around was Walmart and Kruger's. That they never really walked in the neighborhood near where Robin Hood Hills was in that residential area. But he used to live over there when he was young, when he was in kindergarten.
Like, let's just ask the same question over and over and over.
That would drive me nuts.
Right? Like, dude, listen to the fucking answer, man. Like, I don't know if they do it to try and, like, trip him up and get him to say something else or what, but
Yeah,
oh,
that's why they
man.
do it. That's why they do it.
God, that would be so annoying. That would fucking trip me up. I'd be like, yes. I mean, no. Wait, what? What is the question again? I would be so bad.
By the second time, I would have been like, are you fucking done now? I already told you my answer.
Right?
Yeah.
How he keeps calm and stuff, like, good on him because I don't think I would have.
Davies then asked, isn't it true that you are the one who told the officers that the children were mutilated? That was on May 10th of 1993. The autopsy was done on May 7th, so we are talking about 4 days after the bodies were recovered. Did you say, quote, they were probably cut up one more than the others? End quote. Those are your words, aren't they? Damien explained. He asked me, was one cut up more than the other? I said, yes, they were, probably. Davies then says, you indicated that you heard they were drowned? Damien replies, no, I indicated I heard they were mutilated. Davies asks, so when he put down his response to that question, heard that they drowned, he made that up too? That just isn't true? Damien, they made up a lot of stuff so far. Davies interrupts Damien saying, answer my question. Damien answers, no, it is not true. Davies, you never said that. The officer just put that in on his own. Damien, yes, he did. When he put in there regarding whoever committed these crimes probably thinks it's funny and that he won't get caught and won't care one way or the other if he did. Did you say that? Damien, yes. And Davies, the officer didn't make that up, did he? Damien, no, I said that. Davies, you told the officer, you told him you thought the person who did it would think it was funny? Damien, yes. Davies, and would not care one way or the other if he got caught? Damien, probably not. Davies, and you did make the statement to the officer that I will tell you all about it if you let me talk to my mother. Damien, I said I will tell you everything I know. Davies, if he says in his report that you said I will tell you all about it if you let me talk to my mother, that's inaccurate too? Damien, that's just another of his lies.
He did say, I will tell you everything I know. That is what Gitchell wrote down. It is inaccurate. And let's not pretend that cops can't make a mistake, right? Like, or misword something in trial. Like, especially if this is all trying to come from memory, of course you could say it differently than what it was actually said, right? It's hard to say who exactly is telling the truth here. I know most people, especially grown-ups, would lean towards the police telling the truth. But we know that's not always the case. But it also could have been a case of misunderstanding or mishearing. Either way, I think it's worth noting that there are parts that would have benefited Damien more to lie about than this. That makes me think that he is telling the truth here. The statement about whoever did it probably thought it was funny shows Damien's immaturity more than anything. Teens can often seem to be callous when making comments to make themselves look cool or like a tough guy or edgy. But the comment about them not caring if they get caught, that seems kind of logical in a way. While, yes, whoever did this did try to cover it up, at least temporarily, by putting the bodies in the water, someone who kills 3 young boys has to know that there is a strong likelihood that they will get caught. And if they actually cared about that, why would they commit the crime in the first place? So Davies then asks, you don't have any reason or can't give us any possible idea why Miss Hollingsworth, Anthony, and those 2 girls who come in here and make up stories that aren't true under oath to get you in trouble? Damien admits, I have been in several arguments with the Hollingsworth, and that's it. Davies then asks, they are familiar with you, right? And they know you? Damien says, yes. Davis asks, how many times you reckon Miss Hollingworth has seen you? How frequently? Damien says, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week. She would drive by me or something, drive by my house, and we would be out in the front yard or something. This alleged sighting was significant for the prosecution, basically putting Damien leaving the area of the crime. However, it is a bit controversial. Narlene claimed to have seen them around 9:40, but other witnesses placed Echols on the phone at that time. The Hollingsworth family gave inconsistent statements regarding the exact time and who was present. Tabitha Hollingsworth claimed to see them between 9:15 and 9:30, while Rick Hollingsworth said between 9 and 10. Even the prosecution seemed to doubt the sighting in their closing arguments, suggesting the Hollingsworth actually saw Jason Baldwin and mistakenly identified him as Dominique Tier, despite Narlene knowing Dominique personally. Dominique is Narlene's niece. So if she's like, I saw Dominique, you would have to believe it's Dominique that she saw. Like, you're not going to mistake your own niece, right? But the prosecution have never put Dominique at the crime scene or anything. They've never suspected her to have any involvement whatsoever. So if this is true, if Narlene Hollingsworth did actually see Damien and Dominique in the area, you're putting Dominique at the crime scene, like leaving the crime scene. And why would she implicate her own niece? Something is not right. Narlene initially reported seeing young boys in muddy pants, but her descriptions were inconsistent. Her testimony, I don't know. There's some issue too with one of the Hollingsworths having, they're not supposed to be around young children. So when they claimed they took all the kids in the station wagon with them to pick up whoever it was they were picking up, we don't know if they actually had all the kids with them, or if she's lying because they weren't supposed to stay with this other one that was not allowed to be around young children. I don't know. There's a whole mess there. I wouldn't take her testimony too seriously, to be honest.
This is Narlene's testimony. Narlene made the statement. It was between 20 after 5. Yeah, it was 20 after 4. And we left my house. I took L.G. Hollingsworth straight to McGauley's, where he lived. Then I left him. And the street I took led me straight down to Weaver School. And that's when I seen the 3 little boys on the bicycles. They were just before you get to Weaver School. And then they were going so fast on that bicycle. And then one of them come out in front of me. And I honked at him and told him that he needed to get out of the street, before he get run over. There was two smaller boys and a little heavy-set boy, a little heavier than the rest of them. And the little heavy-set one had a little bit darker hair than the rest of them. If I am not mistaken, the little heavy-set boy had on a pair of green shorts with some black in it, with black and white tennis shoes on. But I think they all three were wearing shorts. But I am not really sure about the other two because I go a good look at the little dark-headed boy. That's the one that I can really describe better than the rest. They were all three on bicycles. Yes, they were. And nice bicycles. So we know only two of the boys had bicycles, and there were only two bicycles found. Also, the description of the clothing isn't accurate. Sheila, the lady that lived in the apartments, told me that they did live back the other way when she spoke to her. So they were going away from their homes. I never saw them little boys again, but I did see something later on Wednesday night. I went straight to my house and cooked what I always do what happened was Dixie Hollingsworth had asked me to pick her up at where she worked at a laundromat. She said, will you pick me up? I get off at 10. I said, yes, I will. That laundromat is right there on Ingram and the only one next to the Flash Market. I got ready to go, and my husband went with me, and my children were too. And on our way, coming down like you're going to Love's, I saw Dominic and Dominique coming down the street. This was exactly 20 minutes to 10. Exactly, because we had our watches and we knew what time it was. Okay, they had dark clothing on and they were not cleaned.
I'm sorry. Like, you just happen to see them and then go, oh, it's 20 to 10. Fuck off. There's no way. Like, no. Give me a break.
Dabs. The police officer taking the statement says, you said at one time that they were muddy all over. Did they have dirt on them? Yes, they did. Now. They was coming back towards Lakeshore. This way. They were. It was a yellow sign thing up and some stick standing up, and then they were just before that got to there. Sorry, I can't.
Right? I'm sorry, and we're trusting, but we're trusting her fucking testimony, and this is the nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's complete nonsense. You had it right. That's exactly what she said.
Okay.
It just doesn't make sense. It's not coherent.
Like some stick standing up, and then they were just before that got to there, where they was.
And the prosecution is like, yep.
Yeah,
see,
totally.
Let's
we
totally
got
believe
you, girl.
Right. Safe.
Oh my lordy. Okay, as we were driving by, she pointed the stick over or out to us, and it's right there on the off-ramp where street as you go east down the interstate. The off-ramp off to the South Service Road is where the yellow stick or marker was. And they were on the south side of the South Service Road, headed west against the traffic. Okay. From then, I don't know. Dabs asked, who all was with you when you saw these? Narlene, Tabitha Hollingsworth, Ricky Hollingsworth, and I believe Mary Hollingsworth and little Ricky Hollingsworth was in the car too. I think all of us was in that car together that night. I feel like saying this with an accent.
Right?
I think all of us was in the car together that night.
You know what? That's probably exactly what she sounded like. But does it not feel a little like fake to you? Because
well, she's like, I think this person was in the car. I'm like,
okay, so you're driving down the road, you're in this car, and would you be like, hey mama, look, a stick?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like, you're not pointing out sticks, but I also wouldn't talk about my family as, I wouldn't be like, so it was me and Scott Seipert and Tyler Seipert and Michael I'd be like, it was me, my husband, and my two kids. Yeah. I'm not saying all of their last names. Like, This seems very like if you say they're like me, my husband, my two kids, and they're like, and can you tell me their names? Then I'd be like, Scott, Michael, Tyler, and they'd be
Hmm.
like, and their last names, right? Like I'm just because
Yeah.
that's not how I talk about my family. I would not say everybody's last name.
No. No.
It's so like forced or made up or rehearsed. That's what the word I'm thinking.
Right.
It feels
Right.
very rehearsed,
All right.
poorly
Dab.
rehearsed because they don't speak
Yeah.
normal. So
No, it's terrible. Didn't you say that you also were you driving?
these fucking people, man.
And you said that you turned your bright lights on when you saw them so that you could definitely see them. Narlene. So that I could get a good look at them to see who they were. Yes, I did. And I said, that's Dominic and Damien. No, don't look like that. No, don't look like. It is. And I got a good close look and said, it sure is. When asked, these people are known to you, Dominic and Damien? Narlene replies, yes, I see them all the time. Well, I don't really know Damien because I don't go around him from all the bad things that I hear about him, but therefore I don't let my children go around him and Dominic. I've known her all of her life because I used to hold her on my hip when she was 6 months old baby. She goes on to say, I was upset about it for them being out that late and around that area. But I was wondering what they were doing out at that time of the night. My husband told me to quit worrying about it because they're all out all the time. He said that he sees them all the time, so he told me to quit worrying about it. So then when I talked to Dixie Hollingsworth, I got to the laundromat. She said that LG Hollingsworth had just left from there in some car. And I said, that's funny. She said that it is, and she never did say why. And I thought it was funny. But I thought that he had just left from there and they were coming down the street. So then when I talked to Dixie about it, I told Dixie what I had seen, and she said, yeah, that is kind of odd. I said, yeah, it is. I said, Dixie, those little children, and later on, they found out they were dead. I said, Dixie, that's kind of odd for them to be out of that time of night and those little kids were dead, don't you think? She said, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I said, let me ask you something. I said, since you know Damien better than me, do you think that he's capable of anything like that? And she said, yes, I do. She said, because he's in with the devil.
These fucking old biddies, man. They're just two old women just nattering bullshit at each other. Like, first of all, you're driving down the road and your kid is like, look, mom, a stick. Okay. And then you see these two people and you go, you know what? I'm going to stick on my high beams and blind the two so I can see who it is. Drive down the fucking road. Pay attention. You're driving. Why are you like focused on who you're seeing outside at night when you're driving with your entire family in your car?
Small town busybodies.
Fuck sakes. And like, why is it weird? It's 9:40.
Yeah, that's not
That's
late.
not late. It's May. It's
Yeah.
9:40. If you're like at 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, that's weird. But they're teenagers. Who gives a fuck? 9:40 is not weird for teenagers to be out that late. I'm sorry. It's not.
No.
And like not like 13, 14. Like they're 17 and 18 years old. When asked, okay, so the next day, what time the next day did you find out? Narlene explains, it was late. Well, when I come back over in this area again, Thursday, because I promised LG that I would take him to work because he didn't have no way but me. Okay, when I come back down the street, I seen a white car that belonged to a policeman or an undercover car. And they were two others out there too. And there was a crowd of people gathered around, and I said, that's unusual. Sorry. It's really unusual. There was three missing little boys the night before. It's unusual for there to be cars around. And either that's a police car or maybe an undercover car. Like, this lady. Hester, the other cop, taking her statement, asks, you're talking about right here on the corner. Narlene, right down here. Hester, the corner of Barton and 14th. Narlene, I said that something bad has happened. I just know it. And, LG was in the car. Hester, about what time of day was this? Narlene, let's see. It was, well, I had to be back at work about 10 o'clock. Hester, 10 o'clock in the morning? Narlene, right. Hester, okay. Narlene, because they were all gathered up there and I didn't know what was going on. So I went on down there and LG was saying, "Get me to work." So anyway, I went on and got him to work. So then later on that day, he got off early. Who gives a shit? Could you imagine being this cop? I'd be like, "Bitch, will you just tell me the important shit? Okay."
Right?
God damn. Okay, so going back to Damien's testimony from Narlene's nonsense that she spewed. So Davis asks Damien again the area he and Jason walked in, using a diagram this time and circling specifically the area he is talking about, which was east of 14th Street and south of the service road and the interstate. In that particular neighborhood, Marquette Street and Goodwin, which was the same neighborhood where the three victims lived. He's basically asking him, "Did you walk in this area?" Damien explains, "I think by looking at that map, I would have had to. Probably in the area at least twice a week for a few years." Davis asks, "All right, and that when you told us yesterday that you hadn't been over in that area, the residential area near Robin Hood Hills, were you just not thinking of that particular area?" Damien explains, "No, when you said neighborhood, I just didn't know what you were talking about, what that neighborhood is. I had to walk through there to get from my house to Jason's house. I would have had to walk there to get from my house to Dominique's house or anywhere in Marion." So basically, they're like, "You told us yesterday that you didn't go in this area." And he's like, "Man, you just said neighborhood. I didn't know which fucking neighborhood you were talking about." Simple. Let's not make it seem like he's telling this big lie to cover anything up. They weren't clear.
Davies asks him about the medication he's on, and Damien explains he's been on an antidepressant for a couple of years. He admits he took it last night and that it makes him sleepy. He didn't think it made him any calmer whenever he took it. It just, quote, "I just go to sleep real easy." He says he takes it for depression and that he is manic depressive. When he doesn't take his medication and he goes into a manic state, he cries and he says, quote, "I stay by myself most of the time, closed up. If I don't take the medicine, I get headaches. I get nauseous, just generally depressed." Davies says, "Well, that's the depressive state of a manic depressive. What is the manic state like? When you are in a manic phase, a manic depressive is somebody who has big highs and big lows, right? Tell us about the big highs. Is that where you feel nearly invincible?" Damien says, "Yeah." Davies continues, "And that's what you get when your medication gets out of level, right? And you get that feeling that you're invincible, that there's nothing you can accomplish, correct? Now, has that condition, did that lead to the incident when you were in school where you attacked the boy and tried to claw his eyes out?" It's important to note that a person with bipolar disorder, formerly manic depressive illness, can and frequently does experience more depressive episodes than manic episodes. It is common for depressive episodes to be more frequent and last significantly longer, sometimes up to 3 times longer than manic or hypomanic episodes. Medications are often better at preventing mania than treating bipolar depressions, which can leave individuals in a low mood state for longer periods. It is more likely for a person experience a manic episode to commit acts of violence, such as an assault, than murder. And it would be more likely for that assault to occur on a family member or someone they have had previous altercations with than a random act. And also, do you know that bipolar disorder, antidepressants can actually be bad for it?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
there's supposed to be, not all of it, but some of them, it can actually be bad for a bipolar. It can make them even worse.
Huh, interesting.
And if he's not taking his medicine,
Yeah,
antidepressants myself, if you miss one dose, you're going to have side effects.
yeah. And it seemed like, so when I was researching that, it seemed like it was more almost unheard of for them to commit like a random act because it's usually they're mad about, like, if they're mad at somebody or having an altercation with somebody, it makes that worse. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're trying to be like, hey, did you murder them in a manic depressive state or a manic state, whatever? It's like, no.
It just seems like they don't understand the medicine side of it too, though, right? Like, it's not just.
Well, it was 1993. They were still working on shit. I mean, Ritalin had been around since like the 30s, and we're still trying to understand it. So I think in 1993, there's no way they understood how to use all this medication properly.
Right. Now, thankfully, Price objected to Davies' question, but Davies responds by saying, they went on ad nauseum about this yesterday, telling us what a peaceful individual he was, how he was motivated only by good intentions and his character and things of that nature. Price, we haven't put his character into evidence. Just because a defendant testifies does not put his character into evidence, Your Honor, the court. And you were just saying that this is being offered to rebut the peaceable character of the defendant? Davies, nice guy that the defendant said he was yesterday. The nonviolent, the peace lover that wouldn't engage in anything that was violent, would never be involved in any. Davidson, that testimony didn't come out, Your Honor. Davies, it sure did, he said. Gosh, I wouldn't be involved in. In fact, I think I saw it on TV last night. I wouldn't be involved in a human sacrifice. I am a Wiccan. I am a white witch. I don't do anything not in violence. Davies, about a year. I don't think time. I mean, a person's conduct and tendency towards violent activity. And that's not something that changes on a month-to-month basis, particularly if it is as a result of, we need to know if those incidents weren't the result of medication, then the jury needs to know that. Rule 404 seems to allow you to go into a trait of character of the accused if you're trying to rebut the peaceful nature of him. Price, but Judge, if you read on, that is only if it is offered in a homicide case to rebut evidence that we were the first aggressor. It only applies if it is brought in self-defense. We have never argued self-defense, so it is not admissible under 404.2. The court, it's a victim, that of the victim. I'm going to allow you to cross-examine him as to his mood swing and his violence, if he has any, but I want you to avoid specific incidents of conduct unless it is in close proximity of the date of the crime.
Okay, so the Federal Rule of Evidence 404 generally prohibits using evidence of a person's past character or specific acts to prove they acted in accordance with a trait on a particular occasion. It stops parties from proving a person has a propensity to behave in a certain way, such as using a past crime to suggest guilt for a new one, to prevent juries from making unfair judgment based on the past behavior rather than evidence of the current case. A past action, such as a prior conviction, example, a DUI, cannot be used to prove that a person committed a similar act later. There are exceptions to Rule 404, like 404B. Character evidence can be admitted for other purposes, including proving motive, opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, identity, or absence of mistake. This rule is often referred to as a prohibition against improper character evidence, propensity evidence, or character propensity rule. So, for example, in a bank robbery trial, the prosecution cannot introduce evidence that the defendant robbed a different bank 5 years ago to prove that they are the type of person who robs a bank. In criminal cases, the prosecutor must provide reasonable written notice of intent to use other acts' evidence. So basically, just because he was violent with that other kid in school where he tried to claw his eyes out, that doesn't mean he murdered 3 8-year-old boys, right? So they argue for a while about this until the judge ultimately allows Davis to ask a similar question, to which he asks, Mr. Echols, when you have these mood swings and your medication is out of balance, do you get violent sometimes? Damien replies, only towards myself. It just makes me suicidal. My medication doesn't affect how I deal with other people. This part here reminds me of a common response myself and most other people, especially adolescents or young adults, have towards taking their ADHD medication. We often feel like we haven't changed at all, but we notice that other people are nicer to us. So I assume this is something similar, right, to the other mind-altering medications. You may not notice a difference in how you relate to other people, but how they relate to you.
Davies then goes back to the questionnaire the police asked him. Now, you testified about the questions that were asked to you on the questionnaire. He asked you on question 3, quote, why would someone do this? And your response was that the person was sick or Satanist. Is that correct? Damien replies, he asked me, was it possible if they could be a Satanist? And I said, quote, yeah, I guess. Davies then says, okay, so it's your testimony that you didn't say that the person was sick or Satanist, that Mr. Ridge, the officer, is the one who made those statements, and you just agreed. So those weren't your words? Officer Ridge was talking about a Satanist, not you? Damien says, right. Davies then asks, okay, now on question number 9, when he asked you how you think they died, and the answer is, quote, mutilation, cut up all 3. Heard they were in the water drowning, cut up one more than the others. Is that correct? Is that again what Officer Ridge said and you just agreed? Damien says, no, I had saw that on TV, newspapers, and people talking. Davies asks, and you knew about the drowning, correct? Damien responds, I knew they were in the water. I didn't know that they were drowned. Davies, you knew that one was cut up more than the others? Damien replies, whenever they were asking me about mutilation, I thought different from mutilation. What I call mutilation was different from what I had seen up here. Davies repeats, I was asking about one being cut up more than the other. Damien answers, he asked me, was it possible? He said, quote, do you think one was hurt worse than the others? I said, quote, yeah, I guess. Davies says, oh, so again, that particular area was one of those things where Officer Ridge told you, and that wasn't your response. You just responded about the drowning and mutilation? Damien said if he didn't get the answers he liked, he would go back and try to get me to say something else. Davies moves on. Question 11, quote, how do you think the person feels that did this? The answer was, quote, probably makes them feel good, gives them power. Now I guess Officer Ridge said that too? Damien explains, no, I use common sense on that. If someone was doing it, then they must have wanted to. And if they were doing something they wanted to, it must have made them happy. I don't think they were doing it because someone forced them to or because they didn't want to. Davies, so in your mind, the person that killed these 3 kids, it is common sense that killing 3 8-year-olds would make you feel good. Damien, whoever did it, it must have. Davies, okay, and it gives them power? That's also another common sense perspective from you? Damien says pretty much. Davies, now, when you say, quote, gives them power, is that based on what you have read in these books? Damien, no, it had nothing to do with that, just the crimes itself. Davies, killing 3 8-year-olds gives you power. I don't understand that. Explain that to me, please. Damien, they probably thought, well, that they were like overcoming other humans or something. Now, I tend to agree with Damien here. Sort of like a bully, right? They tend to pick on someone smaller or quieter than they are, someone less likely to respond. I think the same could have been said for someone that murders children. I'm sure they did feel powerful in some way. And I do agree.
Right. And can I also note that if you remember, Jesse Miskelly said that the detectives, if he didn't answer the right way that they wanted him to, that they would question him again and keep questioning him to get the answer they wanted. And Damien is saying that they did the same thing to him. Right. So it seems to me like it would be a tactic of the police to keep questioning until they get the answers they're looking for. What was it? He said that it made him happy. If it didn't make him happy, why would he have done it? Like whoever killed them. Obviously they wanted to, right? And
Hmm.
they must have felt some type like of power, like not that it gave them power, but like they felt powerful because they had just done that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Davies then asked Damien, now, on question number 19, he asked you, had you ever wondered what it would be like to kill someone even if you didn't go through with it? And your response, did you respond by saying, gosh, I never thought about killing anybody? Damien says he can't remember. So Davies said, you responded to him that whatever you do can come back to you 3 times over. Damien corrects him, saying 3 times as bad or as good. Davies asks where he got the statement from, and Damien explains, I don't remember. I guess I've just heard it all my life. Damien goes on to explain that Officer Ridge asked me what did I think could be the possible motivation for the killings, and he had said thrill kill or satanic act. Davies also says that it says here that you said there was a number of 3 victims, and it was symbolic because 3 is a special number in some of these religions. Is that your response? Damien explains that I wondered what 3 had to do with it because he made a big deal out of me wearing 3 earrings and anything with the number 3. He was making a big deal out of it. I didn't understand that. Davies then says, so that wasn't your response? You're saying that Officer Ridge made that up and you just went along with it? And Damien replies, I agreed with him so he would leave me alone. Davies asks, so you said and told Officer Ridge, is it not correct that you told him that the killer knew the kids, went out there, knew the kids, and asked the kids to meet them out there? Is that what you told him? To which Damien says, he asked me, was that possible? And I said yes. Damien admits that when Ridge asked him why he thought they'd choose those victims, that he said that they would be not big, not smart, and that when asked, did I think that they were worried about the screams or if they tried to stop them from screaming? And I said no. And he asked me why not. And I said, well, they were out in the woods. So I don't guess there would be anybody there to hear them scream. So why would he be worried about it? He also said if the killer got off on killing people, he probably would like to hear them scream. Davies also asks, now, did he also ask you about what type of things you would expect to find at the scene where these 3 boys were murdered if it was a satanic killing? Damien admits he did tell him, while Davies simply focuses on the candle wax, as Lisa S. does mention there was candle wax on the shirt of one of the victims, but she doesn't confirm it to be consistent with any candles related to Damien. Davies fails to mention that the other items Damien mentions were an altar and animal skulls, neither of which were found at the scene. And quite frankly, those seem like obvious items to pick. That would be at a satanic murder scene, so I don't find that to be compelling. When Davies asks him, why do you think there was candle wax on that little victim's shirt? Damien gives a very logical answer. It could have been whoever killed him did it. He could have got it before he left home. I don't know.
Right. I mean, people have candles at home all the time.
Yeah.
There's no telling where that candle wax came from. But the power of 3 thing, like it's a normal thing, right? Like it's not like a Satanist thing or a religion thing. It's like if you do something wrong, something wrong could happen to you 3 times over, right? Like
Yeah.
that seems very normal. It doesn't stand out at all, right? Like karma, basically. Yeah. They make such a big deal out of the silliest things. So Price gets the opportunity to ask more questions and asks Damien, you were asked earlier when Mr. Davies was questioning you about the question that Officer Ridge asked you about how do you think the murders took place? And you answered mutilation. All three were probably cut up. One more than the other. Heard they drowned. Probably just one person did it. And he asked you, why did you know that? And you said, because you heard it on TV and read it in the newspaper. And other people were talking about it. Do you recall him asking that question? Damien agrees, and when asked to read the headline from the May 7th, 1993 copy of the Commercial Appeal newspaper, he reads, mutilated bodies of 3 boys found in bayou. Price continues, and now I want to ask you about this would have been the next Commercial Appeal, May 8th, 1993. You can read the headline and that first portion on the page to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Damien reads, autopsy showed 3 boys died of mutilated blows to the head. The West Memphis boys found dead Thursday in a slow-moving creek were killed by multiple head blows. Police lead investigator said Friday. Damien's testimony leaves you asking more questions. We know Damien lied and tried to create a certain image for himself, and it's easy to see that in creating that image for himself, he made himself look like the type of guy that would do this. I can imagine him telling people that he killed dogs for animal skulls that he had when in fact he didn't kill them. He collected already dead animals with his stepdad, but saying he killed the animals made him look more dangerous. But it also made him fit the profile of someone that could have harmed the kids. He told the police that he did cult-type activities, and he told people he drank blood. Again, to look like a badass, right? The girls at the softball game said they overheard Damien talking to Jason about killing the 3 boys and that he was going to kill 2 more, and that he even had one picked out. Later, Damien told Aaron Mority in an interview that if he had said that, it would have been a joke. He also told an Arkansas reporter the same thing. So I have no doubt that he did say it, but it's the context in which he said it that's important. I can easily imagine him and Jason talking about it and Damien jokingly, which is obviously inappropriate, but jokingly saying, yeah, I did it, and I'm gonna kill 2 more, knowing that the young girls were listening, trying to scare them and make himself look like a scary guy, right? And the young girls, not understanding the context, told their moms. This is exactly the type of inappropriate things that he says for shock value. Just like after being convicted and sentenced to death, he said he was going to be the quote, it'll be sort of like I'm the West Memphis boogeyman. Little kids will be looking under their beds. Damien might be under there. All these things he did trying to create that image for himself are part of the reason that Damien, Jason, and Jesse were convicted. It's not to say that he did it, but it's definitely why the police had to look into them and why the jury convicted them. We warn people, don't say stupid shit. But context is huge, right? Like, I think I can totally just see him. Oh, yeah, I did it. I'm going to take 2 more. Like, I can totally see him doing that. Just him being a dumbass that he was, which is not funny. It isn't. But looking back in hindsight, if he did say it like that, I don't know, he probably just didn't think anything of it at the time, right? Like, how many times have we said something that's really dumb and really inappropriate, and if it had been taken out of context, could have got us in a lot of trouble?
Oh, for sure.
We do that all the time.
For sure.
Yeah. Like, how many times have people said, oh, I could kill you, but they don't mean it like they're actually could kill you, right?
I say I'm going to string you up by your toes.
So if, anyone that Cash knows has ever caught strung up by their toes, Cash did it.
Or my kids, I tell them I'm going to hang them in the tree by their underpants.
I used to, when I get like really mad, I'm like, I am going to turn green and explode. I don't know why. I don't know if it was a Hulk thing that I thought was super cool, but I would say that all the time. And I remember when my kids finally, they're like, what does that even mean? And I was like, I don't know. It just made me even more mad. So that's it for Moms on Mics this week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Moms on Mics Podcast, on TikTok at Moms on Mics, and join our Facebook group, Moms on Mics.
If anyone has any topics you would like us to cover, or if you have any questions or suggestions, you can email us at momsonmics@gmail.com or submit through our website, momsonmics.com.
We would also appreciate it if you could rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps the podcast move up on their charts so it gets more exposure. I hope you join us again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.